And good morning. It's 8:02 a.m., Friday, April 29, 2016. Welcome.
Good morning.
Flex those muscles. Let's get ready. Let's get started. I'm pumped up already. I've been up since 4. I've been at it. I've been hustling, getting things done. So, Larry, we're starting off with your question about my inventory resources. So I saw that thread. And it's funny, I have to be very honest and transparent. I always cringe when I see people posting those links to other people's resources because I'm like, don't mention my competitors. But at the same time, I have to bite my tongue because I have to be fair and just let everybody sort of get an equal shot at this. Otherwise, I'm trying to make it about me, and it's not about me. So anyway, I did post the links to my own resources. And one of them is a playlist that I probably need to update. But it's got 19 videos. I put it together one day. For the obvious reason that it gave you one spot within YouTube where you could sort of index all the videos that I have in inventory. And those aren't just teasers, by the way. Some of those videos are like 15, 20 minutes long that go into a lot of detail. A couple of them highlight an Excel template that I created back in 2009 and then a follow-up one I created in 2010 where you can, the video shows you how to run, I think it's a stock status by item report. It's either that or the valuation summary, I forget. But I basically created a template that's sort of based off of that report. So you could run the report in QuickBooks, drop it into the Excel template, and then it adds in a few columns that help you analyze. Like one of the things I love to do with a client who's got inventory is to analyze, if I look at everything that we have in stock as of today, assume we buy nothing new and sell out everything, bleed the whole inventory lot, how much money will we make potentially based on those inventory sales? What will our profit look like? And so that's one piece of information I love to analyze. So one of the videos that show you my templates show you how to use the templates to accomplish exactly that. And then, of course, they've also provided the space that when you're doing your inventory counts, it's much easier to me. Like, you know that physical inventory worksheet report that QuickBooks gives you, where it's just like a list of the items, and then it gives you these little lines where you can print that out and write the numbers in? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
So I always found that very unwieldy. For one thing, when you print it out, the space is too small, and if you have handwriting like mine, nobody's ever going to be able to read the numbers, right? So I'm a much bigger fan, have been for a long time, of having something digital where the information can be typed. And these days, let's face it, you're going to go around a warehouse with an iPad and do your counts and punch it in there. So why not put it on a spreadsheet? In fact, at this point, I would take it one step further and say, forget Excel, put it into Google Sheets, because now I can have several people in the exact same sheet at the same time, each with their own iPad updating their counts, right? This way, I don't have to duplicate. I don't have to consolidate counts afterwards. I can get it all done in one place. And so my template that I created lets you lay all that out and get that information, you know, like I said, about the profitability of what you have in stock, potentially, if you sell it all through, and also gives you the space to get those counts done. And it just makes it easy. Then I show you how, basically with a simple process of kind of like, you know, you pull up your inventory adjustment screen in QuickBooks, and you have my Excel template with everything filled out, and everything's going to be sorted by item name, right? So you have it in the same order in Excel that it appears in the QuickBooks inventory adjustment screen. And so you're just pressing Control-C, Alt-Tab, Control-V to paste in the actual physical counts, right? And to do the same with the values. I always do a quantity and value adjustment. I never just do a quantity adjustment. It always ends up screwing me up whenever I've tried to do just quantity. I always end up getting screwed up on the value. So I always just do both, even if the value is the same. I don't care. It's just this way I can ensure myself that I've got the result that I want. So there's 2 videos in those 19 that actually cover the 2 different versions of that template that I created. And I'll be honest, the reason I created the second one was because I was pissed, because when I created the first one, I offered the template for free. And I said, just email me and I'll send you the template. And I figured, all right, I'll build an email list based on people who have inventory as a need, right? So big mistake, because to this day, that was in 2009, I still every week get requests for the template. If I had sold it for just $10, I'm sure people would have been happy to pay that little, and I would have made thousands on it. So a year later, I realized already the mistake that I'd made, and I said, well, let me try and do an updated one and say, look, you got the first one for free. This one's even better. If you want this one, it's $10. Guess what happened? Everybody went for the free one, because they're always going to take free over paid, no matter how much better it is. I mean, unless it's like really way better, but it really wasn't. You know, it was a little bit better of a layout that I did on it. So this was my learning experience. So, but now what I've done most recently is I said, you know what? Because every time I'd get a request, I didn't really, and it's just very unlike me, I didn't really have a good system around responding to the requests for the template. because I would just get them and I would say, and then it would get annoying and I'd blow it off and that would take me a week to get back to people, which is poor. I promised it for free online. I got to do what I promised, right? So, then I found myself making sure that I responded within 24 hours each one, but each time I'd have to go browse to find the template, attach it to the email and send it. And at that point, I was just trying to fire it off just to get it done and get back to whatever it was I was doing. So I realized I'm not taking advantage of the opportunity that I had at least set myself up to be able to take advantage of, which is to compile a list of email addresses of people who have a significant inventory need and take advantage of that and market to them. So most recently what I did was I said, all right, I'm going to use 17 hats for this. And I did. I think I covered this in a video recently. I want to say I did, or maybe I promised to and haven't done it yet. But if I didn't, I will. And if I did, then it's out there and I'll look for it. And if you remind me, I'll point you in that.
You did those 4 videos on 17 hats for...
stupidme.com. Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
The SOB.
Yeah, that didn't cover this though.
Okay.
That was really like an introductory and how to use it to deal with the onboarding process. So this is where I turned it into a marketing machine because I said, okay, I'm going to use the 17 hats lead generation form. I didn't touch the leads area in that course. So I used the 17 hats lead generation form, and I used to have a smart sheet form. And I said, nope, because I want the leads to come into 17 hats now so I can automate the workflow that starts once the lead comes in. So now what happens is if you look on nerdenterprises.com and on sethdavid.com and go to the contact page on either of those sites, it's actually the exact same form that's embedded, right, with just a different image on top of it. And when you fill that form out and they put in their comments where it says, how can I help you? As soon as they mention that they're looking for the inventory template, I immediately assign a workflow that I've created in 17 hats called inventory template. And the minute I do that, an email goes out instantly with standard language that I've written, obviously, and the attachment attached to it. When I discovered that you could attach files to the outgoing email in 17 hats, I was like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe I didn't pay attention to this sooner. Because it's perfect for this. So the email goes out and it says, hey, obviously you caught my video on YouTube. Here's the template you asked for. And then I want to say, by the way, I have some other resources that you might find helpful since you're obviously concerned with learning how to better manage your inventory. Right? And of course, I remind them that I'm available to be hired for one-on-one help. And then 2 days later, it sends out a follow-up email with that second version of the template attached. Because now I'm like, forget it. I'll just give that one away for free, just the same. So I offered it, and that gives them, a reason to want to read on when they first open that second email, because immediately it says, hey, by the way, I just want to make sure you got the attachment I sent you the other day. I'm attaching it here again, along with another one that I created about a year later. You might find you like it better, right? So that's like the first paragraph. And then it goes on to describe the 2 webinars that I just mentioned, Larry, that I've done on advanced inventory and regular inventory. And those webinars really go through how to post the inventory transactions, but beyond that, how to run the reports and drill around and understand how everything is flowing from a simple purchase of an item that you resell at a profit to building an assembly and how the inventory cost transfers from the components to the finished product, and then how that flows from the balance sheet to the P&L when you sell that, right? So those 2 webinars, between the 2 of them, you have, like I said, everything you need. They're each about $147. And then one of them has an upsell. The advanced inventory one has an upsell where instead of the $147 for $250, which is what it would normally cost you anyway for a 1-hour session with me, you get the webinar and a free 1-hour session to get follow-up questions answered. So that becomes kind of a no-brainer. Like, just pay the $250, you'll get the webinar and an hour with me for the follow-up. So you get kind of the best of both worlds.
So using 17 hats is like an autoresponder in a sense?
Yeah, because I can even program in more follow-ups after that if I wanted to. And so now I'm going to build more workflows based on different kinds of inquiries that come in. And then now let's say one of these leads ends up becoming a client where they say, hey, I want to hire you for your business management service, right? And that's, of course, where they outsource their whole accounting process to me. So, I have plans for that. So if they pull the trigger on one of those plans, I can build in another workflow that just handles the whole onboarding process for that. So the first thing that'll happen is once they email me and say, yeah, Seth, I want to sign up, then the first thing is they're going to get an email with a link to go schedule their monthly subscription payment for whichever plan they want, right? Because that's what I've done now is I built, rather than have to frankly dick around with chasing people for money, which I'm just so sick and tired of doing. I'm dealing with it again with another client that I made the mistake again of saying, oh, I'll work with them, I'll let them pay me in arrears, and now I'm spending time doing precisely what I never want to have to do, which is chasing them to get paid. and they're almost 2 months behind. And I had said, if I don't get a payment by the end of this month, we're done. I'm stopping work. And then the check came for one of the months. So now I still have to chase them for April's payment. But in any event, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I built in a subscription using WooCommerce subscriptions. So now if somebody wants business management services, they're going to click a button and they're going to sign up and pay the $1,500 for the first month. And then I'm going to get to work. So once they tell me they want to get started, the first email from 17 Hats in the onboarding process workflow is going to say, hey, click this link, go make your subscription payment. And then once I've confirmed that payment's come in, I'll trigger the next piece of the workflow in 17 Hats saying, okay, now send them the email that describes the onboarding process. And it's basically going to be our narrative with a list of the things I need from them to get started, right? I need access to your bank accounts. I need to know where your accounting information is at. I need to let you know that wherever it's at, if you're not already there, we're moving you into QuickBooks Online because that's how I'm doing it, and I'm not flexible about that anymore.
So on the 17 Hats form that's on the website, is that something that's pretty easy to code? No, is it just like HTML
You want to see it?
Yeah.
I'll show it to you. It's so easy, Dennis. And it's funny because I was just talking yesterday with somebody who wants to use Insightly in the same manner. I didn't even realize that Insightly had a lead capture module in it. Apparently it does, but I looked at it yesterday, and I'll be honest, in my opinion anyway, it sucks. All right, let me get a new tab open on my browser here. Boop. You like how I have a bookmark folder called The Office? And this is like somebody once asked me a couple of webinars ago, a couple of Zoom-ins ago, which apps I use every day. Well, this is it. This is the list. I have them all in their own folder here. Oh, I got to put in my LastPass password.
Yeah, I like LastPass. I use that myself.
It's my favorite. So leads, lead capture, and if you want to create a new form, you click here where it says lead capture methods plus lead capture email, lead capture form. Mm-hmm. So you name the form, how to be notified, email. This is cool because for people who like text messages, you can actually be notified by SMS. Or you can say both, which is not bad. Oops, somebody's got the background noise going on. So you choose how you want to get notified when somebody fills out the form. And then you choose the auto response, right? So I built an auto response and called it lead capture confirmation. So this is just what they initially get, confirming the form was filled out and saying like, hey, we got your information. We'll be back with you shortly, right? Because it might take a day for me to get the workflow done. So you create that. That's, again, that's just the initial thing that confirms that you got their information. You link it to a calendar. I only have one calendar in this anyway. You can, in the bigger picture of the lead cycle, you can build life cycles. So you can build like a life cycle around what happens with a lead when they come in. I haven't gotten into that yet. But that's another area to be aware of that you can do with 17 Hats. So you can say the first life cycle of the lead is that initial correspondence that goes out, and then maybe you create a second life cycle for that lead, which is what happens if they haven't become a client after a month, and maybe you start sending them some other information. So it's almost like what you might want to set up with like a MailChimp, where you have these automated emails that go out based on certain intervals, right? But with MailChimp, I can't build that into the sort of lead capture. I mean, I could, but I can't. I could, but it's not as easy to create the workflow. And I definitely can't create emails that will go out with attachments attached to them. That's the coolest thing about this to me. And then also after submitting, so as you can see, it's really straightforward. And then instead of creating a new one, I'll just kind of show you the form that I've got. So over here, let me just edit the form. I am editing the form. Sorry, it's been a minute since I did this.
So it creates a code you can just park on your website?
Yeah, I'm going to show you that. It's been a minute, so I just have to remember how to get into the editing part of it. Oh, here, so lead form questions. So now you add, right? So you can do it. Here are your choices. Do a short answer, long answer, a yes or no question, a subtitle, choose from a list, checkboxes, date or text, right? So those are your choices. So I created here, just a name field, right? The company, the email address, and then a phone, and then how can I help you? I want to keep this part real simple. I don't want to hold them hostage filling out a long form. They're going to give up and go away, right? I want to make sure I require the least amount of information possible, just enough to know how to get in touch with them with a proper response. And then here's the display message that goes off when I say, after submitting display a message, thank you so much for contacting us. Our goal is to improve our clients' lives so profoundly they couldn't imagine working with anyone else, and blah, blah, blah. So now you go to install the form, and it has a specific thing for how to add it to your Facebook page. But if you want to put it on a website, which, by the way, is a very smart thing to do, but if you want to embed it on the website, you just click this guy here that says Insert Form on Website, and you just copy and paste this code into
But it's not mutually exclusive. You can do both, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and you should do both. In fact, I should probably stick it on my Facebook page. I haven't bothered to yet. But yeah, it's that simple. So if you want to do Facebook.
So are you using 17 Hats as basically a workflow and a leads capture? I mean, you were using Zoho for a while. Are you still using Zoho?
I was using Zoho strictly as a CRM. Still do. And I'm back to playing with Nimble again.
I use Zoho to, basically, I probably live in it during tax season because I like it so much. But as far as like lead captures and maybe workflow, I'm thinking of maybe going with 17 Hats or trying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this for the lead capture and the workflow automation. I mean, that's what 17 Hats does really well, is automating the workflow. And this way, when I get the inquiry and I'm giving away the free template, at least the way I attempt to monetize that is by using 17 Hats to automate the upsells and say, hey, you want this template, you must want information about how to better manage your inventory. Here are some ways you can hire me to help you with that.
Mm-hmm. Does it give you analytics as to where, or is that something you can get in Google Analytics? You know how the 17 Hats is doing?
Google Analytics can show you where the lead came from. So remember that these are embedded on the contact pages. So Google Analytics is just going to tell me that, so many people are on the contact page every day. And I can start to get a sense of if there are a lot of people on my contact page, but I'm not getting a lot of people submitting the form, then I'm probably doing something wrong on the form.
Does 17 Hats give you like a report, like an Excel spreadsheet of all the leads, or?
Well, you just go to the leads area, and here's a list. So here's active leads. These are people I haven't quite archived yet, recent ones that came in where I've already at least responded to. Mm-hmm. This one I've actually had my assistant following up on. So when I go click into this project, I have notes that I've made. Katie's going to let them know that I can help with Fishbowl. Katie is following up, was actually before that.
So you basically use this to replace the Smartsheet form, because you were talking about Smartsheets in an earlier video.
Yeah, so Smartsheet this literally replaced what I was using Smartsheet for, at least in terms of, I had my contact web form built in Smartsheet, and then my assistant and I would both get notified when somebody filled that out so that she would normally follow up on them. So what was happening with that was that when somebody requested the template, I'd given her a copy so she knew how to email it out to them. But even there, while that's helpful, I still wasn't, I still wasn't, monetizing it the way I should be, the way I had meant to. So when I started playing around with the lead generation area in 17 Hats, that's where I saw the first opportunity. Was like, okay, one, I can take this off my assistant's hands. I no longer need to pay her, frankly, to do that for me. I can have 17 Hats do it for me. And moreover, I can have it do more in terms of the follow-up. I mean, yeah, I could have given her the standard language to send out. But again, it just makes a lot more sense for me to let 17 Hats do it automatically. I don't have to worry about anybody forgetting. I don't have to worry about if she's on vacation one week. 17 Hats just does its thing. 17 Hats never takes a vacation, right?
So if you wanted to, could you share this with your assistant, the 17 Hats?
No, that's one of the downsides of 17 Hats right now is they still don't have the ability for you to have more than one user. So, okay. This is all like when I get the confirmation in my email, and if it's something I do want my assistant to follow up on, I just forward it to her.
Okay.
And this is an example of that. So that's what I've done here is this guy, Ed, when he filled out, and here, by the way, you can see what they filled out. It's all preserved here. And then I just went in and I logged a note saying Katie is following up once I forwarded it to her. And then after she got back to me and said, hey, I'm going to, let him, she actually got back to me with the question and then wanted to know if I could help the guy with Fishbowl. And I wrote back to her saying, yeah, I can help him, if need be, if I need to brush up on it, because it's been a while since I've used Fishbowl. I said, I'll do it, just to get the business in, because I'm trying to make more than normal aggressive effort at growing the the one-on-one private education part of my business. It's just one of the things I've been doing a lot of changes. I don't know if, Dennis, I think you sometimes read my blogs. I don't know how closely. So if you've been reading what I've been writing in The Hustle, all of this is kind of stemming from what I've been writing about there over the last, after the first quarter of this year and having taken a good, long, hard look at really not just the prior year, but certainly an emphasis on the prior year, but even, the number of years before that, since I've been doing a lot of this speaking at conferences and all this stuff, and really evaluating where am I getting the best bang for my buck in terms of the time I invest into things and the money. And, quite frankly, I've been finding the more I look that it's not coming from doing the conferences. It just isn't for me. I'm sure it's great for other people, but for me, that's just not providing the returns that I would like it to provide. Whereas my one-on-one training stuff is, I could have probably been making double the revenue if I had more focus over the last few years on just that part of my business. So now the effort is aggressively going there. And I'm not doing any more conferences. I'll be in Hawaii next week for ExpensiCon. And to be very honest, if I had it to do again and I had already kind of started making the changes that I'm making, I likely might have turned that down. And I love the guys at Expensify, and I love their app and their product. But it's just not the direction I'm going in terms of being at these conferences anymore. I will be speaking at QuickBooks Connect. I've confirmed that with my friends at Intuit. After Maui next week, QuickBooks Connect will be the next and only other conference I will do this year.
Yeah, I found that, like going to chamber meetings and that kind of thing, I may enjoy it socially, but it's not very efficient for, getting business, first of all, because it's not very focused in a sense, because you're meeting all kinds of people there.
It depends who your target audience is.
Yeah.
If for example, your target audience are accountants and bookkeepers, if you want to coach accountants and bookkeepers, then these conferences are perfect to go speak at and build an audience based on the people who would hire you for that coaching. The reality is, and what struck me hard when I started looking at things very closely over, like I said, during the first quarter of this year, what I learned is that most of my business, most of my revenue still comes from the small business owners. And those are not the people who are at these conferences.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for QuickBooks Connect, because QuickBooks Connect has the two tracks. They have the small business and the accounting. So QuickBooks Connect is the only conference that at least has the potential exposure that I'd really be looking for. And the truth is I'm not even doing it for that. I'm doing the QuickBooks Connect because, first of all, Intuit, out of all these companies who put on these conferences, they're the only ones who proactively came back to me this year and said, Seth, we loved what you did. You got great feedback from your audience, and we definitely want you back. The only ones. Nobody else said that to me. Despite the fact that I've been at one of these conferences year in and year out, over and over again, consistently gotten good feedback. And it's like I have to beg them to have me back every year. So I'm done. But, so QuickBooks Connect I'll do. And then the other big piece of it, and the other big reason why I'll want to go, is to see everybody, to see my friends, my extended family that I've, gotten to know, like you all, over the last few years. And that's the number one reason why I'm going to QuickBooks Connect at all, is just to see the people that I've grown to love in this community.
I had another question on, the email that you send to your assistant from 17 Hats manually. Is that something you could program in Gmail to kind of an if-then if it's from 17
I could create a rule that would automatically forward it, but I don't want to do that because I don't necessarily want to forward everyone to her. I need to look at it myself and evaluate where does this lead need to go. If they're a template requester, then it doesn't go to her. It needs to go to, I need to just add that workflow in.
But in the rule, could you make it so specific that only a part
Not
of
like
the...
that, because I would have to have a rule that somehow analyzes the body of the email and searches for the text template, right? And even that may or may not work because somebody could use the word template in some other context. So no, it's frankly asking too much of the technology to try and do something.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Gina, you wanted to see my bookmarks? Here they are. I'm very crazy about how I organize my bookmarks because otherwise I lose track and I have a difficult time finding things. And one of my biggest pet peeves in life is not being able to find what I'm looking for in 30 seconds or less. So I have services, for example, here, and then within that I've got project management. And you'll see a lot of these, like 17 Hats, and I've got not just Smartsheet, but links to specific areas of Smartsheet that I like to access. And then I've duplicated a lot of the stuff that's in these other folders over here in the Office. So the Office is just that. It's like my digital office. These are the apps that I'm in every single day of my life, just about. Right? So, of course, 17 Hats. There's two different active collab domains that I use. So that's why you see that in here twice. Adobe Connect I'm almost done with. I stopped using Adobe Connect when I started using Zoom at the end of last year. So my Adobe Connect account would normally be up for renewal in June. I have already told them I'm not renewing because for a fraction of the money I can get, frankly, even more than what I was ever able to get out of Adobe Connect using Zoom. Asana, here's my general Asana link, and here's a link directly to a report I created in Asana, which gives me, it's a really nice sort of query, search query that I've saved that gives me exactly what I like to see every day in terms of what's going on across all projects and what's due or what was due and hasn't been completed yet. So that's what I love about cloud-based software is you can do stuff like this. I can link directly into that report that I like. Of course, Bill.com, Bill Quick, my calendar, Google Drive, Evernote, Gmail, Google Keep. I actually love Google Keep. It's just the coolest little digital sticky note program. It's like really powerful sticky notes, and I love it. Go ahead.
So Google Keep, I mean, are you limited to where you can put your sticky notes? I mean, you can't put them like on a website, can you? Or
No. It's here. I'll show you. It's basically, think of it as like a digital pin board where you can put all your sticky notes and then you can organize them. Right? So here's like a little pickup list, that my wife must have texted me some things she wanted, and I just moved it over here to Google Keep. So I can kind of say this is done. I'll just delete it. Don't need to save that. So again, it's little sticky notes. Now, of course, you can organize the sticky notes. Right? So I have labels that I've created, published versus WIP. That was me playing around with if I wanted to organize my course content as I'm developing courses. What do you call it? I was playing around with using this for that workflow. It turns out I was back to Evernote on that very quickly. But I always like to play around and see, can I get this to work for that reason? So Gina said, I'm so organized. Gina, I'm surprised you're not this organized. I'm shocked. But this to me is the only way to do it. And what happens is, and here's what I'd suggest, honestly, if you're trying to get it all together now and you feel like you have a big mess, is just start somewhere. Start one folder and say, these are my bookmarks. Just call them, important stuff, right? And then when that list of bookmarks gets overwhelming to the point where you're having trouble finding it, now it's time to subdivide it and break it down and further organize it. That's how this got built out. It didn't start out like this. It started out with one folder, and then I started saying, okay, well, you know what? I have services, so I just had a services folder. But then that list grew. So I said, all right, let me subdivide it and say, here's my accounting apps. Here's my banking. My CDNs are content delivery networks. And this stuff is for me. It's just so I know what it is, right? Communications apps. So different emails that I need to access. MailChimp. Mighty Text is a way to get my text messages in a browser so I don't have to pick up my phone while I'm sitting at my desk. River is the Slack competitor that I've been playing around with here and there. Speed test. It's not really, it's kind of communications. It's internet communications. It just tests the internet speed of your computer. Verizon Messages is Verizon's answer to what Mighty Text is. WhatsApp Web. I use WhatsApp to communicate with my family in Israel. WhatsApp is very, very big in Israel. I noticed when I was on the train on the way up to northern Israel that all these Israeli soldiers, these young kids, it's so weird to see such young kids dressed up in military uniforms. But I saw this like 20-year-old girl sitting there on WhatsApp, messaging with people. And it was just very interesting to see. And it's funny how in different countries, different things take off. And I think WhatsApp was actually bought by Facebook, I want to say, or maybe it was Microsoft, one of those. And then, of course, Zoom. So, again, I'm just breaking down my services into subcategories. Here's entertainment, right? This is really more personal stuff. Netflix, Pandora, and Vudu. File storage apps, Box, Dropbox, QBox, ShareFile, SmartVault, and YouSendIt. Then here's all things Google. So you're going to see some of the same things in different folders, but that's because at any given time I don't necessarily know where I'm going to be thinking in terms of how I'm going to go look for something. So anything that logically fits in one of these subfolders, I'll just have a copy of it there, right? So
I see Google Keep isn't in there, though.
No, I guess I never put it here because by the time I bookmarked it, I probably stuck straight in the office.
What's the difference between Google Keep and Evernote in terms of, I thought you had like a scratch folder and...
Totally different. Evernote is really much more robust digital note-taking application that does a ton of stuff. Google Keep, I think of as more of just like digital sticky notes. You can't really format the text in a Google Keep. And since you brought it up, I'm actually going to paste Google Keep in here and then reorder by title. So this is just digital sticky notes. If I go edit one of these, there's no formatting options. I mean, yeah, I can do Control-B to bolder. No, actually, this came in bolded because it was probably copied and pasted from somewhere else.
Could you send it to like Evernote?
You have an option where you can email it. Boop, boop, boop.
So you just use your Evernote address to.
Yeah, but why then? Now you. Yeah, but why? Like, why would you want to do that? It
Well,
seems.
if you want, I mean, if you were using this as like just kind of like a temporary place where you're just doing scratch notes and then you cite.
So at that point, what I'd probably do is just open up Evernote, and copy and paste my stuff. But the reality is, if I want to do that, Evernote's got such a good mobile app that I would probably just do it in Evernote in the first place. This is more like, if you see here, it's like little personal stuff. Like this, actually, this is one cool thing about Google Keep is, not this one. Where's my take out the garbage? Here, so this repeats weekly on Monday. So every Monday, my garbage gets picked up on Tuesday. So every Monday at 6 p.m., my reminder comes up on my mobile device based on this note that says, take out the garbage. So I don't forget. There are times when I forget, and then I get woken up by the garbage trucks coming by, and then I'm running out like a madman. So,
I can identify that.
So I love that reminder. The other thing that this has that's really cool, check this out. Get mail. Watch this. So now I have a UPS store box that my mail gets delivered to every day, right? So what this has that I've never seen on any other app, Evernote doesn't have it, nothing else that claims to be a note-taking app of any sort has this one feature or anything like it. So let's do a reminder. And what I want to do is I want to pick a place. So I'm going to choose a location. 2416 West Victory Boulevard is my business address. Now, what this means is that when my phone's geolocation recognizes that I'm near the UPS store, I'm going to get this reminder that says, go get your mail. So if I'm driving home from somewhere and I get near the UPS store, that reminder is going to pop up. I'm going to say, oh, let me stop over there before I go home.
So is it the Google Keep mobile app that's notifying you?
Yeah, it's the Google Keep mobile app, and if you have it's very obviously easy to get that on your mobile app because it's a Google app, so it's just there.
Interesting.
I'm going to test out how well this works. I want to see how close I actually have to be to the UPS store for this to work. And then, of course, you can color code things, and then you can it has some really good search capability where you can filter stuff based on color. So when you go search Google Keep, I can just, the only problem I have with this is there's no way to go anywhere and define what red means or what orange or yellow means. You just have to kind of know. So that's the only thing I don't love about Google Keep. So Gina says, this is something I haven't paid attention to. It just grew and started to have a life of its own. Seeing your list inspires me to fix it. Maybe I should offer a service. I can help people organize their bookmarks. It never occurred to me that this might be a problem for people. I just figured everybody did it this way. So here's health management. So these are there's this thing called Level, which is really something called Thrive that I've been looking into. I have a childhood friend who's been hounding me for months to do it with her. I think she mostly is after me because she knows I'm influential, can probably get a lot of people to sign up, which is what makes me weary about it in the first place, ironically. So here's all my project management apps, right? 17 Hats, again, Active Collab, AnyDo. Some of these are ones that I've just played with. I don't use AnyDo. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think I hated AnyDo when I tried it. Asana I used to hate, now I love it. Evernote, of course. Scaleless, I was playing with for a while, starting to like it, but ultimately I didn't feel like it solved any problems that the other apps I was already using didn't already solve themselves. There are a couple of things I like better about Scaleless, but a few things that drove me crazy, like when I forward an email into Scaleless, I can't edit that content. And most of the time when I'm forwarding stuff into Evernote, which is mostly where I forward stuff, I like the fact that I can go in there and reorganize and reformat the text to take, because if I'm forwarding it, I want that information as a reminder, but oftentimes I might just want one little piece of it. I don't need all the header information, all the other nonsense, and it makes it hard for me to look at because then I'm trying to find what I was actually trying to forward it for. And I have to go through a lot of information. So that was one of the big sort of deal breakers for me with Scaleless was that I couldn't edit that content when I forwarded it. And that may just be a problem that I have. Maybe everybody else is fine with it. And that may, whatever. I made my concern known to them. But if they don't hear the same concern from, a lot of other people, they're not going to address it. I'm not that special as much as I'd like to think I was. Smartsheet, again, I have different ports. I like going into the community area of Smartsheet and getting ideas for other things I can do with Smartsheet. And then there's Smartsheet status, which is where you can check to see if Smartsheet is down. The brain, you all know, it's my mind mapping, my favorite mind mapping application. That's really a lot more than mind mapping, which while we're talking about it, have you looked at what I put on SethDavid.com from the brain?
No.
It's down here on the home page. So look what I did. I actually put my chalkboard icon that I've been using now since I launched SethDavid.com as the background image of the brain. So you can see the brain is sort of superimposed on top of the chalkboard. And I love this. And I actually do add content to this regularly, so I put this message here. Believe it or not, I do updates pretty regularly. So if you go like over to the mind area, reading and learning is probably where I add the most stuff. You can see I've got a lot of bookmarks in here. So you can go to like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I'd sort of not been paying attention to for a while. And now I'm back to paying a lot of attention to him. Again, ties right into the way I'm trying to remodel Nerd Enterprise. So you go in here, and then down here is the link. So you can just click on this and go read. So if you want to read what I'm reading, that's how you go find what I'm reading and read it.
How do you put the read later on there? Is that something?
That's a tag, actually.
Oh, okay.
So that's and I can't, unfortunately, on this version of it, it's not clickable. But on the desktop version, I'll show you, you can actually click on it so I can see all the things that I've tagged read later. So I'm so excited that Gina's so impressed with my bookmarks.
I have a question. It was the question I asked to get in. Have you looked at the is it Airtable yet? You were talking about it.
Not yet. It's obviously on my to-do list, but I haven't gotten to it yet, and I have so much other stuff going on that it may be a while before I get to it. What I'm trying to do now is to sort of get some of my other colleagues who I know love this kind of stuff to sort of play with it before I can. One of whom is my brother, whom I just saw. My brother is I guess we have some more people I can bring into the panel, so let me do that while we're here. My brother is like a fanatic when it comes to Microsoft Access.
Yeah, I like Access.
And he, for a long time, before it was ever, before we had this cloud-based world, he did a lot of Microsoft Access kind of programming stuff. So I told him about it during this recent trip that I took to see them. So I'm sort of half hoping that he'll take the time and get obsessed with it, so then he can kind of download it to me when he's done. That's sort of my plan. So, and then you reminded me I should look at these questions. Do I charge a discovery session fee, Jennifer asks. I don't really sort of frame it that way, but the answer is yes. Basically, here's how I work this. And I know it's an important area of concern, especially when we're onboarding new clients or dealing with leads and prospects. Here's how I handle it. If you make it look like you're charging a discovery session fee, I think it's off-putting to the client or the prospect. So the way I do it is this. I offer the free 30-minute consult. Anyone can get 30 minutes on the phone with me so we can talk about that. Now, of course, what happens often enough that I've developed a protocol for this is a lot of people will sign up for that 30-minute session, and it becomes clear immediately from their comments that they're looking to get the actual training in that session because they'll fill up the comments with all their questions. And the funny thing is I laugh because I'll see a list of questions that clearly it would be lucky if we can cover it in an hour, and they're hoping to get it all in the free half-hour session. So I have a protocol for that where my assistant reaches out to them, and she gets copied on every confirmation from every appointment that gets made. That's another workflow system that I've created where if you use Google Apps for Work, you can create a group which works and looks and functions just like an email address. So I have appointments at nerdenterprises.com, which then redistributes to me and Katie, my assistant. And so appointments at nerdenterprises.com is the email and username for my Schedule Once account so that any confirmations that come in through Schedule Once go through that email address, which redistributes to the two of us. So now she knows how to recognize when she sees from comments like that it's pretty clear that somebody's really not looking for what the free session is intended for, and they're clearly looking to get an actual training session. So she'll reach out to them at that point, and she'll say, look, from your comments, it looks like you're ready to just have a session. And she'll give them the link to go sign up for a paid session. And oftentimes what it accomplishes two things. One, it actually is for the client's benefit, because if that's really what they're looking for, then it's to their benefit rather than have the free session only to find out we're not going to be able to cover it all or nearly all of it. Plus, I'm going to tell them, look, all this session is designed for is for me to get a sense of what your needs are and then turn around and give you feedback and explain how I can help you and how the services work. So So it saves them that frustration of having that 30-minute session only to find out how it works in the real session. And then they have to sign up and get on my calendar and wait perhaps another week or two until I'm available again for another session. So she saves them that trouble and angst and says, look, it looks like you're ready for a session. Click here and go sign up for a session. This way, Seth can just get started and help you right away. And some people, oftentimes it converts that free session into a paid one just like that. And again, it's not like I'm trying to take advantage of people. It's actually to their benefit when we do that, because clearly when they have that specific questions, then that's what they need. They need the paid session. So in that case, I'm really not doing a free discovery session. I'm saying, look, if you want the actual help that I can provide, my time's valuable. We go on the clock at that point. Meanwhile, some people will say, no, I just want the 30-minute session because I want to get a clear understanding of how the services work. That's perfect. That's exactly what that's designed for. So I guess the true answer is, no, I don't have a free discovery session. I will give them a 30-minute call in which I will ask them to tell me about their company, what's going on, and why they've reached out to me. Obviously, if they're reaching out to me, it's because they have a concern or a problem of some sort. So I let them explain it to me. I've learned that the most important skill we have, especially in that kind of a call, is for me to take the cotton out of my ears and put it in my mouth, right? In other words, shut up and listen and take as many notes as I can. That's where Evernote comes in. And make sure I get very detailed information about where they're looking for help and where their pain points are. And that way, with those notes in front of me, I can intelligently give them a response and give them feedback and outline how I can help them and what the plan might look like. So do I charge a discovery session fee? No, they can get the free 30-minute call. But if they want the actual help that I'm going to provide, then we go on the clock. Period, dot, the end. I don't have time, and I have too many people asking for my help already that it's just not worth my time to spend an hour with somebody free of charge. If they want that, there's a lot of other people out there who need the business, more than I do, and based on that, who'd be willing. That's why it all comes down to supply and demand at the end of the day. And people talk about value pricing, and I'm sorry, but I just think it's such bullshit. Value, and don't get me wrong, I like the concept of value pricing. I think it's important. I think we all should be charging based on a flat monthly fee or based on something that's very predictable. But to say that, under the heading of value pricing, I'm going to go out there and price my services based on the value of what I'm providing, that's where I think it's BS. Because you and I can both do bank reconciliations, but it's worth something different to have me doing it versus you doing it, perhaps, right? So it's not just about what's being delivered. It's about who's doing it and how that delivery is being managed and what am I actually delivering to the client at the end of the day. And a lot of that is based specifically on how much experience do I have doing this, right?
Well,
I've been doing this for a long, long time. When I do a bank rec, it is damn thorough. I don't plug numbers. I don't leave anything to chance. If there's a penny difference, I'm going to find it and fix it because that penny, a perfect example. Yesterday I was working with somebody in a one-on-one session and we were looking at some old bank recs that his previous bookkeeper had done. And she used the adjustment function in the reconcile because she obviously couldn't find a $35 difference. And what led me to that was the $265 some odd dollar transaction that didn't exist in the bank account. Now add that to the $35 and we're into a $300 error rate so far on 1 month's reconciliation. So again, is my reconciliation work going to be worth the same value as somebody who's been doing it for a year and who's going to plug numbers? So that's where I think the concept of value pricing has a lot of BS associated with it. In the end, it's supply and demand. If I go out there and I show people that I have a certain skill set and experience that I bring with that skill set, that shows that you can rely on the work I'm doing much more so than somebody with a lot less experience, then that has a hell of a lot more value. And what I'm doing there is I'm creating demand for what I offer. And that demand is going to be different from the demand from what anybody else in the world offers. And as I am able to build demand for what I offer, I'm able to increase my rates. And it's all supply and demand. And I wrote a whole series on SethDavid.com this year about it. And I'm going to keep going out there stronger and stronger against the idea of value pricing in its totality. There are parts of it that I love, but parts of it that I loathe. Anyone using like Intuit Tax Online?
I do.
What do you think about it?
I've used it for about 4 or 5 years now, and I've got kind of mixed emotions. On the positive, you can have, like I've got dual screens, and so I can open up sessions on both screens and, compare the different years. And I can have it's kind of like I'm limited by the amount of memory I have, the number of tabs I can have open. The thing that I don't like about it is I feel the documentation kind of sucks. And it's kind of all over the place, and a lot of times I'll have to get on chat with the representatives to figure out where this particular thing I need to check is. And so it's not real intuitive in that sense. I guess one positive thing is that it's you have to have a good knowledge of tax to use the software. It's not like TurboTax where it's holding your hand. But the positives are improving it every year. It's reasonably priced. You get a 30% discount for being a pro advisor. So I've been taking advantage of that, which basically for me, the pro advisor membership more than pays for itself by the savings I'm getting on ITO. I've been using it for 4 years, so obviously I like it well enough to keep using it. And you can also get copies of the PDF tax returns on your mobile device, and you can send it on your mobile. It's just that they're so busy trying to build it out that their documentation, especially like say organized documentation like a PDF manual, is lacking. And so sometimes it's really hard to figure out where you need to go to answer your question.
Right. See, what I've seen, I don't do taxes, but from what I've seen, when I've seen it demonstrated, the really cool thing about it from what I've seen is, of course, if you're using QuickBooks Online, then it seamlessly pulls the data right from the QBO file. And then as the tax pro, you get in there and I imagine tweak it to make sure you're taking advantage of all the deductions that you need to.
Yeah, that's good. You have to have the same login ID. Like I've got numerous login IDs with Intuit for various reasons. And so I have to make sure that when they set up their QuickBooks file, or they send the invitation to a very specific email address for me.
But I have it through my QBOA, right? So it looks to me from what I've seen, like as long as they add me as their QBOA account, then yeah, of course you want to give them your QBOA email address for your QBOA account, and then it seems like you could seamlessly tie it in to...
Well, you can, but it's like my QBOA email is different than my Intuit Online email.
Oh, well.
Because I was having such a heck of a time trying to get it set up with the QBOA that I gave up in frustration, just opened up a new email address to get ITO to work. But if I tell them specifically my ITO email address, then I can have access to the file.
But then you're not able to access it through QBOA?
I am, but I just have to,
So because they send it through your ITO email, then I would assume it's going to be disconnected from your QBOA.
Actually, the way it goes is that I'm able to get to it through my ITO email, I believe. It's just kind of a legacy problem with, Intuit and all the problems they've had with the different login addresses in different realms and all that crap. So.
Gotcha. It's funny, going back to the questions, I skipped the very first one from Jan, who was the first one to register, and she's not here. But she wanted to know what the best part of my trip to see my family was. And the answer is simple, seeing my family. I never get to see my brother and his kids because they live, on the other side of the world. So
how much have they changed?
So in a year, a lot. I mean, a year ago, my oldest nephew, Joshua, was just beginning his military training in the Israeli army. And now a year later, he's in a special anti-terrorist unit. And he's got this ridiculous, one of my clients actually he knows guns very well. You saw the picture I posted of me and him with his gun. That's the other thing. It's very unsettling. We don't see this here in the United States, but when you live in the Middle East, it's very normal to see 20-year-old kids walking around with heavy artillery around their backs because that's the world they live in. They need to be on guard at all times. So he has a scope on his gun, which is a special issue, my parents told me. So that when I posted the picture on Facebook, one of my clients who's, he has a hobby with guns, he goes hunting and all this, he looked at the picture evidently, and he commented saying, oh, that's whatever, and he named it out and said it's about $2,000. And I thought he was talking about the gun, and my father took a look and he said, no, that's just the scope. It's a scope that's got a range of like 300 or 400 yards in terms of accuracy. So, so that in itself is such a huge change over the past year. And, in a short time, these are young kids. I mean, they're going into the military when they're 18 years old. So in one short year, he's grown into quite a man from what he was before the military,
Well, to me, from the outside world, Israel seems like kind of a dangerous place, but, in real life there, is it safer than you would think?
When I had a conversation with my brother, who's now been living there with his family for, I think, more than 10 years. And I once asked him, I said, aren't you worried about the safety, about your kids? You're taking your kids into this foreign country in the Middle East where I mean, look, they have to go into the military when they're 18. Aren't you worried they could get hurt or worse, die? And he said to me, he said, the reality is, in many respects, it's safer here than it is in the United States, because in the United States, our guard is down. I don't want to get into a whole political debate, but I could argue that that's why 9/11 happened at all.
Oh, yeah.
Our guard was down. That would never happen in Israel. Israel, since Entebbe back in the 70s, has not had a single hijacking of an El Al aircraft. Not one. So, my brother's argument, and it was pretty convincing to me, is that because their guard is up, and because of where they're in the world and how they're surrounded by enemies, they have to be the strongest military in the world, and arguably they are when you consider what they're up against every single day. So,
I imagine you get very skilled at recognizing things, whereas to me 9/11 was like a sucker punch.
Well, they stop buses, and soldiers will board and walk up and down the bus. And what they explained to me, what my nephew explained to me, is that they're trained to know how to pick things up based on literally just looking into your eyes. And they can tell if you're nervous, if you might be hiding something, the way you're dressed, if it looks like you might have a bomb strapped around your body. And they'll pull people off a bus and check them, right there and then. It's a way of life there that it's so unsettling for us here because we're so used to taking it for granted that we're safe. But it is what it is. So it's a very different world. And of course, the reality is you're not going to go live in a country like that unless you do it for the reasons that my brother did, which is that he wholeheartedly felt like this is where I need to be to support my people, my country, where we come from ultimately, and I have nothing but respect for him for that. But that was the best part for sure, is seeing them. And of course, the second best thing was, being able to go into a country like that and really get to see it, and also get the opportunity using social media to show people what a beautiful place it actually is. If you were following, I was posting like every 5 minutes at certain points on, through Instagram. I was pushing it to Facebook and Twitter simultaneously, and just taking a lot of little 30-second video clips. We went hiking it's called Mount Carmel National Park. It's a beautiful park in northern Israel, where you see from the videos and the pictures that I took how beautiful it is. I don't have to explain it. You can just go see it.
Well, is the population kind of like concentrated in certain areas, or is it?
Of course, like anywhere, it's more dense in the bigger cities. In Jerusalem, much more densely populated than when you go to the outskirts. And then again, you go to like the south, where Eilat is, and the Dead Sea, and that gets pretty densely populated too, because again, that's kind of a populated area. Tel Aviv is a huge city, and it's very, very modern. Remember that a lot of companies, high-tech companies that we're familiar with, like Intel, have substantial operations there in Israel. In fact, most of Intel's technology is actually developed in Israel by Israelis. Larry, did you start to say something?
Yeah, I was quite taken. The field of beets that they were harvesting for the poor folks. That was quite interesting. They must have some farming practices there. Everything looked pretty lush and green,
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things. I mean, they turned a desert into a place where they can grow oranges the size of grapefruits, and they do it all naturally, just using technology and irrigation, and it's really advanced stuff. So it's funny, an area of land that nobody wanted, all of a sudden everybody wants it now, because they're like, hey, how did they do that? But yeah, and it's amazing that it's an interesting story behind that organization. That was the other cool thing about what we did. Like, one of my friends who I knew from high school, actually elementary school, who also now lives there, was like, oh, aren't you going to do any sightseeing? And I'm like, yeah, but not the traditional sightseeing that most people would do. Like, I thought it was so cool that this is the kind of stuff we were doing. But that organization was started by a guy who migrated from Teaneck, New Jersey, and he moved to Israel. And he moved there, like many people, with the impression that because of the farming and because of agriculturally what they've been able to accomplish, that there's a relatively small number of quote-unquote starving people in the country. And lo and behold, he finds out there's like 1 million starving families or something like that. And so he said, I want to do something about this. So he started this organization where initially they went to catering companies and said, look, the food you're going to throw away after the event that hasn't been used, give it to us and we'll give it away to the homeless. And a lot of these places are weary about giving that to you because they don't really know for sure if you're really going to do what you say with it. And they certainly don't want to give it to you and have you turn around and try and like sell their leftovers. So it takes a while, they explain, to build up the trust and get people to trust that you're actually going to do the right thing with it. But now, after many years of doing this, they've got that trust, and so they've expanded. And one of the things they do is the program that you saw me doing with my brother and his kids and my parents, where they bring volunteers in every day, and they harvest these fields of crops that are otherwise just going to get thrown away. And
It's amazing.
Yeah, and they put them in these huge bins, and then they deliver them to the homeless so that the homeless can eat.
That's like a double blessing. The people that do the picking and the people that get the food.
It's so cool because by the time we got there, we were late already. I mean, people were there as early as 10 o'clock in the morning. We didn't get there till I think like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. But yeah, I tried to take the picture to show people how much had been cleared during the day already. It was like half of this huge field had already been cleared. And by the time we were done, there was still a lot left to do. They shut down, I think, at like 4 in the afternoon. But it was still amazing how people just come and they're happy to do it. And they said, I think they have about 22 people who are paid pickers. And they're basically there to help the people like us who come to volunteer and say, look, here's what we need you to do. And not that it's terribly difficult, but they just had to explain, don't put the beet in there with all its stems, tear it off from the stems and drop that into the buckets. And then you take the buckets and fill up the huge bins. And then they kind of watch it and make sure that you have enough bin space to keep dumping the beets in. So it was funny. I originally thought we were going to pick fruit. It turned out to be beets. I don't even like beets, but it doesn't matter. I'm not eating them. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I love that.
I bet the fresh food there is even better than what you get from Whole Foods.
Yeah, yeah. When you get it straight from the farm like that, it's probably Whole Foods is probably like the next best thing after that.
Is it pretty organic?
Yeah. In fact, I went into on our way back one day to where we were staying. They have the supermarket chain called Super Soul, and it's like their big supermarket out there. And I bought a thing of grapes. I was craving grapes, and I bought a thing of grapes, and they were just delicious. You could tell they were very fresh. So, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. We did it for the first time last year, and my father was so sort of pleased with the outcome that now he's made it clear that he's going to organize this every single year and just get the whole family together.
Perfect.
Yep. And so that is all of our questions. Quite a range of topics of discussion today. Now I have to listen to it again and just summarize it and write it up and put it on.
Next time you can tell about your Excel trick.
Oh, I forgot about that. You know what? I promise. Let me show you this to you really quick because it's really cool. And it was driving me up the wall. I forgot that I promised you my Excel trick. Evernote. I'll share my screen again. Oops, somebody's dogs are getting out.
It's mine. I live on a farm.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to say somebody let the dogs out. It's totally cool. I'm surprised mine haven't gone crazy.
A visitor's probably walking up.
So, yeah, mine go crazy anytime, especially, of course, when the mail comes.
I imagine your dog's glad to see you come back.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. They're such little creatures. They have such personalities. They punish you. So I come back and at first they greet me. They're all excited, but then they walk away. And it's like, okay, you left us for a week. Now we're going to punish you. And it's true. They like go their own ways and they just ignore me. And it's like, okay, the first time I went away and noticed this, it was like weird. I was like, what's wrong with them? And then my wife explained it to me. All right, where is this? Oh, here. So I'm going to show you my, I've been keeping like a health log. Did I share my screen already? No, let me do that. I keep a health log now ever since I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, where every day I take my fasting glucose, right? And even though the glucometer keeps track of it, I like to keep track of it myself, and I like to keep it on a chart. So I have a different tab now for each month. And over here I've been logging my glucose, and here I've actually been logging my weight. I gained a few pounds while I was in Israel, apparently, 3 pounds to be exact. So I have to lose that back again, which is actually not bad considering I was on vacation and away for a whole week. But what was happening, and it was driving me crazy, I had figured it out on this chart, and I had never done the setting on this chart, and by the time I realized it, I couldn't remember how to do it. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So if I go into the design, and actually, or is it format? I always forget. Nope, design and select data, and I'm going to go back to the default. So the problem I was having is like there were a couple of days when I was, especially when I was on the plane, where I wasn't able to take my fasting glucose. So you see how there's these gaps in the graph? Everybody with me? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. So there's these gaps in the graph, and I'm sitting there playing with the formatting options on this, right? And saying, okay, it's got to be somewhere in the formatting data series options, but there's just not that much here other than, you know, the look and feel of it in terms of the options and what to set. And of course, I knew it was possible because I had done it here, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember how. And then finally, I was trying for like an hour yesterday, poking around everywhere, revisiting the same options areas 15 times over because I'm like, I have to be missing something really obvious. And it turns out it was. So eventually I learned from experience with this kind of thing, especially always trying to figure out how software works, that sometimes you just have to walk away and just let it settle in the back of your mind somewhere, and then it'll hit you. So this morning I was playing with it again, and finally I saw here where it says hidden and empty cells. And then when you click on that, you can say gaps 0 or connect data points with line. And then when you click OK and OK again, then it connects the gaps. So that was it. That was my Excel trick. I toiled with this for hours trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And then I figured it out. But once you figure something like that out, it's like, okay, this is a really cool trick because here's the data and here were the gaps. There was 1 day here and 2 days here where I just didn't get to take my fasting glucose. Meanwhile, I came back and it was down to 116, which was great. This morning it was back up to 137, which is not good. It's supposed to be under 120. So that was my Excel trick.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Especially thanks for sharing the pictures of Israel.
Oh, my pleasure. So now I have to figure out how to kind of organize and compile that in a way that I can archive it and memorialize it somewhere permanently. So I will do that. But that's it. So Gina, we having a hangout with you later today? Same time and channel? Open session, open topic?
I know she's having one, and I think it's featuring HubDoc.
Yep, HubDoc demo. Cool. Very cool. All right, so whoever's watching this, go check that out. If I probably won't have the recording up for people to see the announcement before it starts. So for those of you who are here with us, join Gina later today, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, on Gina's channel, on the Gina channel. All right, everybody. I am going to get to work, and I will see you all later on.
Thanks, Seth.
You got it.